All right, new filter can cap in place. There was no real good alternative to using another multi-section can cap without drilling a bunch of holes in it in the chassis. I figured we'd try to keep this one as unmolested as possible. Got added 100 ohm half watt resistors here from the heater supply to the cathode on the output tubes. And the amp has a slight background hum. It's probably not audible in what you're hearing right now. That's due to the stock ground scheme, which I'll be revisiting a little bit later. But first, let me show you 3 other issues that I can only now hear and troubleshoot because I had to wait till we could power it up safely first. All right, we're starting off on the second channel over here, and I'm plugged into the quote accordion input. It has a little more gain than the guitar input, has a little more high end than the guitar input. And this is what it's sounding like right now. Which is pretty good. See, that's with the treble and bass kind of in the middle. The treble pot's fine. In stock form, the taper is a little finicky where it gets really bright at the very end of its treble. So I'm going to start with it turned down, the treble turned down. So it gets really bright there at the end. And if you want, you can push it till it clicks, and then you get the bright switch option in this amp. Which really just kind of sounds wretched, so I'm going to leave it about 2 o'clock on the treble. It's not a very bright amp. On the bass, you can hear that there's some dirt as I turn that. So on this channel, what I need to do is pull this card out, these pots out. Very careful not to break any connections. I want to clean that bass pot. Let me show you the other 2 issues in the amp right now. All right, now I'm on the first channel, again into the accordion input. A little bit of noise there as you turn at the final extreme range on the treble pot. On some of these, for other clients, I've installed very minor bright caps just because the amp is kind of on the dark side until you get to the extremes. Doesn't have a lot of air. The bass pot on this one, however, does almost nothing till I get to the very end of its travel, and then it cuts in and out. The wiper intermittently makes contact. So I need to remove this card as well and possibly open up that pot and retension some things. The other main issue with this is there is a noise in the tremolo circuit. Let me turn the intensity up with the tremolo off. Notice it loses volume. But hear that? That static is there when the tremolo circuit is set deep, even if the effect is off. That's one or more bad capacitors in this area, most like some leakage. Let me turn on the effect. It is working. But that static makes it pretty much unusable at this point, so. So I know what to do now. I'm going to start with the 2-channel volume, bass, and tone control cards and try to get all that gunk out of there. And then I'm going to turn my attention to the vibrato channel and see about getting that awful noise out. And at that point, we'll see if the reverb's working and take it from there. I'll also talk to the owner about possibly adding very subtle bright caps to make this thing have a little more balanced sound without going to extremes. That's totally his call. All right, a lot of careful cleaning. I took care of all those issues that I just reported. And as far as that gronk on the tremolo, I found one really bad solder joint, factory solder joint, in combination with bad connections in the pot due to dirt, which is why there's DC there. So now, there is definitely a big insertion loss from the tremolo. That's just unavoidable. That's just how it works. But all the noise is gone from the pots, and the tremolo noise is gone. Let me try the other channel, which should also be nice and quiet now. And just real fast to show you the difference a little bright cap could make, I'm going to temp in a little picofarad value cap just to show what a difference a bright cap could make. Let me power it off so we don't hear nasty sounds to the amp. This is certainly not how the amp would go out with that temped in like that, but it's a much more balanced sound. I've got the treble pot about noon here. So I'll talk to the owner about whether that's something he'd like to have left in or just kept stock. Doesn't sound bad without it. It just, it's I think a much more limited amp. All right, let me hook up the reverb tank and make sure it's working before I call the owner. All right, this is a rather odd circuit in that it's got a reverb pot here and a reverb pot on the front, and the one on the back just sets the max. And both of them are at max right now, which means that should just be really big, lush reverb. There's barely any. If I tap on the tank, this is a pretty good amount. If I tap on the driver tube, I get even more. I don't know whether I've got a bad driver tube, a weak recovery tube, or something else. So I gotta go through here and find out. But that should be a big, lush reverb, and it's just really not. So back into it. Well, after a lot of poking and prodding and measuring and such, I think we've got a weak 6C G7, which is the reverb driver tube. And there's a lot of current on that thing, and it's older than I am. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say, let's just get a new one in there and try that before I do anything crazy. But from everything that I can tell, all the other voltages are fine, all the other components measure fine, this signal path measures fine. I think we just have a weak driver tube. So I'll get one of those and report back.